It was Coke. It was Sprite. That was before Diet Coke. Mr. Pibb. Mellow Yellow. It was Pepsi. It might have been Diet Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, Mountain Dew. Oh, yeah. The suicide right there, baby. Greg says that vanilla orange Coke smells like a urinal cake. I've never been that close to... I've never been down there to smell it. Andy Moore, Automotive Group Hotline. You know him from his writings with The Athletic. I know him this morning because I don't know who those dudes were that were fighting over you this morning, but how fast did you get rid of them? There was some dude named Mike W. who was a complete jackass, and then the guy that was defending you from Anderson was even more of a jackass than the guy being a jackass to you while trying to defend you from that jackass. It was amazing stuff. It really was.
I don't block too many people, John. I blocked those two weasels so fast. I mean, they were gone before I could hit the button. You know, I mean, they're saying horrible things about each other's babies
and
each other's children.
Right.
I'm like, you guys got to be kidding me. Is this the level of discourse on Twitter in 2019? Apparently it is. So I got rid of their ass so fast.
There was the dude named Mike W. that basically said, well, I like your content, but I'm here to troll you. I mean, listen, and I know that he would probably scurry away like a little wussy, but there was nobody this morning on Twitter that was in need of more of a punch right to the grill than that guy. Seriously.
Yeah, unfortunately, the only violence, the only thing you can do is block them or mute them. I'm not sure which is nastier, because if you mute them, they think they're getting through to you, but they're not.
Yeah, that's kind of funny because they're doing all the work and not getting any of the reaction that they're looking for. Yes.
Yeah, I was really disappointed by that, and then I put a picture of me walking my daughter down the aisle just to change the subject. Plus, she looked beautiful, and I wanted people to see her.
Well, congratulations on that. And hopefully I'm really, really far away from that moment, but, I mean, how was it? I mean, it's got to be a little bit bittersweet because there's your baby girl, but at the same time, as you mentioned, she looked beautiful, and it's just a great moment.
Well, not to get mushy on you, but as you know, as a father now, all you really want for your kids is for them to be happy. And she's never been happier since she met this young man, and she was overjoyed the other day, and I was more than happy to give her away and get her the hell off my payroll.
What was the father-daughter dance song?
Oh, it was Three Little Birds by Bob Marley.
No. Damn it, that's your choice. That wasn't her choice. That was yours.
She sat and talked about it, and I supported this. She said, hell, I don't care. Well, say that.
The father-daughter dance was Three Little Birds. I can't tell you how outstanding that is.
If it was my choice, it would have been I want to be sedated by the Ramones. Okay? So he did have some say in it.
I'll be honest with you. When I used to DJ, every single time it was, I'll be damned, I couldn't get away from Van Morrison's Brown Eyed Girl or Moondance ever. I mean, finally,
I know.
When people started saying, as soon as they went to Van Morrison and Moondance, I said, for the love of God, will you guys choose something else, please? Please.
Well, and my wedding back in the early 1930s, I think we had a Van Morrison song, Someone Like You, I think.
Yeah.
That sounds familiar,
yes.
But I don't think you played that when you were DJing.
Moondance, I think it's Moondance. And they thought that they were they're kind of going off the page a little bit, but I said everybody is choosing this right now. It's like early, mid-90s stuff. But, hey.
So we're talking vanilla orange Coke and weddings.
We are, man. That's
quality material.
That's what keeps people around here for more than 3 seconds, you know, Bob Kravitz.
Glad I could help.
From The Athletics on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So what'd you make of the scroll of Jim Irsay quotes that we got today, courtesy of Stephen Holder on The Athletic from Scottsdale, Arizona, the owners' meetings?
You know, honestly, I just drove back from Purdue. I did see this stuff about Peyton Manning, which both Jay Glazer and I reported back it had to be 2-3 years ago, when they were reaching out to Peyton and John Gruden. I think this was before the last year of Chuck Pagano. So
yeah, 2 years ago. It was 2 years ago in January is when it was.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not like this was something that was going to happen this year. This was I believe it was pre-Ballard, the way Irsay said it. So it was several years ago. I got people acting like this happened this year, and to my knowledge, I mean, I could be misinformed or uninformed, but to my knowledge, it's kind of an ongoing. They really reached out to him a couple of years ago, and he told them that he just wasn't quite ready. And it's one of those things where it's a continuing offer, like, hey, when you're ready, we're interested. But I don't know how serious it's been here in the last year or so.
And I've always said this, I think that this is going to be a spot for him to do something one of these days. And I saw the rest of what was being quoted when Jim was being asked. And again, I mean, you do have to kind of take it with a grain of salt because that's Jim being asked stuff, and Jim just, is Jim in those situations. But, he kind of mentioned that Chris has an interest of having Manning around in some capacity one of these days, whether accurate or not. It kind of feeds to the frenzy that most people want and want Peyton Manning back around here once Peyton Manning decides to, in some form or fashion, get back with the NFL.
Yeah, what I don't know is what his role would be. Clearly, this is Chris Ballard's team to build as he sees fit. I think Chris Ballard has proven that he's the guy and that he knows what the hell he's doing. And I don't know that Peyton would want to be involved in a situation where he's not necessarily in a team-building situation. So I don't see it happening for quite some time. He's got a lot of options. Obviously, Monday Night Football is making a hard run at him. But, this is Ballard's team to do with it as he sees fit. But look, any team that could have Peyton Manning, anytime you have Peyton Manning as part of your organization, it makes you better.
Yeah, it just seems like that Manning continues to do a little bit of recon to try to work himself down that particular path. But it was certainly interesting from a couple of years ago today that we saw from Jim Irsay earlier. Bob Kravitz from The Athletic is on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. And certainly around here, nobody has much of an argument with the work that Chris Ballard has done in the past 2 years. What did you think last week about Justin Houston coming in here? And I called it like this. I said, it may not be a solution, but it certainly addresses a need, and then we'll see what happens.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, somebody said, well, does this change the way they go into the draft? And my answer is absolutely not. Look, Funchess is a 1-year contract. Justin Houston, I believe, is 2 years. I don't think anybody necessarily sees, certainly not Houston, as the long-term answer as a pass rusher, but I think he can give you 8 to 10 or even more sacks if he's used properly. Funchess, if he has the Ebron type of season, may earn himself a long-term deal if that's the direction he chooses to go. But I still think they've got to look at another wide receiver. I still think they need to find themselves a young pass rusher. So I don't think it changes their philosophy necessarily as they head into the draft.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, too. And the thing about wide receiver is I think, I was the opinion last year that they needed to address it, and they didn't. And then they had that epidemic of drops, and then halfway through, I mean, let's face it, Dontrell Inman kind of saved their season at that position. I mean, he really did with what he brought to the table midway through the season and then the rest of the way. And I still think that those of us out there that thought that it was inadequate at wide receiver, it turned out to be accurate.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I thought that Chris, I thought that he swung and, well, he didn't even swing and miss. He just really didn't make an overt effort that, we were aware of to get a wide receiver. And I just thought you saw in the Kansas City game that, look, it wasn't the reason they lost. I think the reason they lost is because they got beat on both sides of the line of scrimmage. But clearly a one-legged T.Y. Hilton, plus, you had a group, none of which was able to get any separation against a not such a great defense, although they're good at home, Kansas City. So I still think they have to look for another wide receiver. Look, T.Y. Hilton, who knows how long he's going to go, but at some point you're going to have to replace him. I think another area they might want to look is at left tackle. You got 1 year left on Anthony Costanzo's contract. I think he's going to be here for several more years. I think he's a top 10 left tackle, but they still have a lot of needs, and what they did in the last couple of weeks doesn't change that.
Bob Kravitz is with us. So are we seeing with Romeo Langford a business decision or a really beyond legitimate injury situation?
Well, I will never question an injury. If they say that he can't play because of an injury, then I'm inclined in a public setting to accept it. If it's just a business decision, I would applaud the business decision, but I would take issue with the possibility that they're not being straight about it. If in fact this is a business decision, I would have no problem with the decision. I would have a problem with the way they're sharing this information. So I am never going, if they say that he's injured, I'm not in a position certainly to question the severity of the injury. But either way, I think this is the right thing for Romeo Langford, and so far it's been okay for IU.
You think they're playing better without him? I don't know how much better, but do you think they are better in general?
I look, St. Francis of Pennsylvania, I think they could have used the bench and beaten those guys, even though they weren't very good in the first half against St. Francis. Then you play an Arkansas team, their coach just got fired. They didn't have their best player, Gafford, who decided to sit out the NIT. So I don't know how much better they've been, but, look, I think this is an important time for Indiana in the sense that you got all those young guys, Devontae and, Finney and Deron Davis, all these other guys, where I think getting good experience from the extended season, more practices, more games in a tournament setting. I think that can only be helpful moving into next year.
So Bob Kravitz with us. So do you think that the conversation that happened recently between Nate McMillan and Tyreek Evans has spawned down the stretch improved Tyreek Evans, or the past couple of games just a coincidence? What do you think?
But yeah, I'm sure, they've been trying to get inside this guy's head all year, and I think he's been a terrible disappointment. But I felt from the very beginning when they brought him in basically to take the spot that Lance vacated, that he could be a difference maker in the playoffs. And because he's one of the few guys you can create off the dribble, and and he can draw fouls. So, whether it's related to the conversation or not, clearly he has really been a disappointment this year. But look, if he gets hot at the end of the year, though, keeps playing the way he's been playing recently, I think it gives them a chance against what we figure will be the Celtics in the first round of playoffs.
Watching, and maybe this has to deal, Bob, more with the way the Celtics are playing right now, but the last time we had a conversation, both our thoughts were probably a 5 over a 4 and no home court in round one. Are our opinions being swayed a little bit by virtue of especially the way the Celtics are playing here down the stretch?
Well, I keep thinking the Celtics, and maybe it's because of the presence of Kyrie Irving, but I keep thinking they're gonna push the button. They're gonna flip the switch, just the way the LeBron Cavaliers teams always seem to do, and usually usually against the Pacers. So I still think, clearly Boston has a lot more talent than Indiana. And, you know, if they were to play one another in the playoffs, I think that I would pick Boston. But something is really, really wrong. And I don't know. I haven't done a lot of research on the Celtics. I just know they look like a team that can't stand one another. And it's strange with a Brad Stevens coach team that you don't seem to have that chemistry. And that's where the Pacers have it all over them, is the Pacers truly get along and have a team of guys who accept their roles and do well in those roles.
You know, it's kind of funny, and getting back to the Tyreek Evans thing, and I don't know about you, and I know you talk to a lot of people over there, but this is not the first time that I've heard individual players not so much happy about the way that Nate has used them. It doesn't always sprout into anything that bad, anything that newsworthy, but it's not the first time for sure that I've heard this. And I think we just kind of look at Tyreek Evans and say, well, automatically it's on him, but maybe these two did need to come together a little bit, and maybe Tyreek did need to tell him exactly how he thinks he can better be used for the betterment of this team, hopefully. I'm not counting on it, but hopefully.
Well, one of the things, I did a piece on Nate McMillan earlier this year, and one of the things that all the players told me was that he, unlike in the past, he's really willing to listen to his players and to accept their input. He'll even solicit their input. So I think, you know, this is sort of par for the course with Nate McMillan and this particular team. You got a bunch of guys who are really responsible, who are not necessarily out for their own numbers, you know, in a contract year, what have you. So I think it's a really a good reflection on Nate McMillan that he would listen to Tyreek or Young or whoever it might be and say, you know, let's look at things from your perspective and you know, make moves to help you be your best.
Yeah, and that's kind of what you have to do, because the margin for error is just so slim with this group, because it's kind of game to game. Like after Denver, you're thinking, yeah, you know what, this team can win a first-round series. But then after 4 games out west, and especially the Golden State game, you're thinking these guys can't win a first-round series. It literally is game to game.
Well, the thing that scares me about the Pacers right now is that offenses, I mean, the Denver game notwithstanding, that offensively they've really been challenged. You know, really throughout the entire Oladipo absence, but especially the last couple of weeks. And, you know, I wonder, once you get to the playoffs and teams take away your first option, your second option, your third option, who do they have who can break defenses down and you know, at the end of game situations? And I don't know that they have that player. I think Tyreek has a chance to be that player, which is why I think potentially he could be really important in the playoffs and give the Pacers a chance. But I look at this team and I see a lot of guys who work together well together, but I don't see any guy who can break down a defense necessarily and get his own.
Bob Kravitz of The Athletic with us. I'm going to leave you with this question, and we'll double back. Hopefully we're both still around at some point in 3 years. Will Peyton Manning be team president of the Colts in 3 years?
No. I think he's going to find something else to do, because I think he's so competitive that he wants to be. If you were to go back into football, and I could be completely wrong, so you can keep this tape if you want. But I think he would want to be in a team building situation, and as long as Chris Ballard is here, and I just don't see Peyton coming in any kind of fashion where it's more of a what's the word I'm looking for? You know, where he just represents the past but doesn't do much of anything. So no, I think I would say no if I was a best man.
Hey, part of me has always thought this: face of, but not the nuts and bolts of. And clearly the nuts and bolts of Chris is doing it and doing a great job. And Chris has been great. I mean, been out in front and talkative, and he's really good in interviews. But I always thought that, I thought this back when they were going through that scrum that was the past 3 years, the back-to-back 8-8s and the 4-win season, that they really needed a face of. And that's kind of always how I thought about him in that capacity. So,
yeah, I'm not sure how much they need that now, because I think, as you said, Chris has been so out front. Again, I think any organization would be better with Peyton Manning, but if he's not here in a team building situation, I'm not sure that he'd have that much interest, to be honest with you.
He is Bob Kravitz of The Athletic. You can check out his work. How can people log on and sign up with a subscription to The Athletic, Bob?
Well, just go to theathletic.com. You get a 7-day free trial. I think there's like 40 or 50% off the subscription price right now. Or if you want to reach out to me on Twitter, and don't make fun of anybody's child, but I can try and get a link for you with the latest and greatest subscription deal that we have.
He was the real life father of the bride, just like Steve Martin was in the early 90s. Couple of days ago. Bob Kravitz of The Athletic. Right. That's you. Thanks, Bob. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
It's Bob Kravitz on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. 3 years Manning a part of this. Yes or no?
No.
Tony says no. 5 years Manning a part of this. See, that's way... In football years, 5 years is damn forever.
No.
Never.
I wouldn't say never.
I mean, if it's not going to happen in 5 years, it's not going to happen.
I'm kind of taking the angle of when will his kids kind of be graduated from high school and into college.
Good Lord Almighty. Quick break. We'll come back. Phone calls, a lot more to close out. Final 30, where we have the Pacers finishing up record-wise in the regular season. Is that opportunity there? I think Tony had him at, what'd you have him at? 50?
50 from here on out. I've got Boston winning 49. Therefore, the Pacers would have the 4 seed.
We'll see. We'll visit that. More on the Colts and the owners' meetings. More with you in general at 239-1070 next.
And now, an ad from Mom.
Save